From 1948 forward, there have been only two occasions on which the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States has succeeded in that quest without being a Southerner. In both of the contrary instances, there has been an anomalous intersection of media charisma and the rule of cool, perceived moderation, whether the candidate was really all that moderate or not, and a determination on the part of the electorate to refute on their own motion, and not because they were hectored into it, any reputation for bigotry, religious in the first instance, racial in the second. Harry S. Truman was, I remind you, very much a son of rural and small-town, Southern-inflected Missouri, rather than of Yankee, Midwestern Missouri. LBJ, Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton were elected as Democrats not because they were Southerners, much less because they were Southern Democrats in the old, soiled sense, but because their Southern backgrounds enabled them to speak to the mass of the common people in all parts of the country. As Republicans, Nixon duplicitously, and Reagan and George W. Bush, and indeed 41, if awkwardly, could and did do the same without the real Southernness, persuading the voter on the street that theirs was a Main Street, not a Wall Street conservatism, one respectful of their traditions and their folkways, and willing to protect these. Had Barack Obama lectured the American voter the way he did, on God and guns and religion, and being a white man from Chicago, John Edwards had been the nominee in 2008. Somehow, the present incumbent, that appalling excuse for a man, has managed the same trick of persuasion as Nixon did, and may yet do so again. My party has lost, and, worse yet, and more stupidly, has decided that it is glad to lose the ability to talk to people who read and half believe in the Farmer's Almanac, who don't really credit everything in it, but won't plant potatoes or cut a bull calf without consulting it. People who rely on mercurochrome and milk of magnesia, cornhuskers lotion and bag balm, apple cider vinegar, and BC powder. My party has, instead, developed a habit of chasing the votes of people who believe in their chakras and Himalayan sea salt and hot yoga and juice cleanses. Worse yet, my party is full of people who believe that the first group are ignorant rednecks and the chakra and juice cleanse bunch are intelligent and sensible people. Spoiler, they're not. Fools are fools, and the more they spend on their folly, the greater fools they are. My party is full of people who talk a great deal about the workers, have never met them, openly despise them and their folkways and beliefs, and talk about them just about how you'd expect from a bunch of two-bit socialist state junior college sociologists. In fact, they side with those whom the average American, and particularly the average blue-collar American, regards as his cultural enemies, owing to those peoples having acted as his cultural enemies, commonly with the support of these hectoring lecturers from my party. My party has forgotten that, for example, the UAW member on the factory floor in Detroit is a good deal more likely than not to be the grandson or great-grandson of people who came to Detroit during the Great Depression from the hollers of Kentucky, or who came to Detroit as part of the great migration of African Americans from the segregated South. And a right smart of them did not change their culture, including their religion, when they changed their dress. And one particular branch of the extensive Mathers family of Kentucky remained in Kentucky, M&M would never have rapped about backstage nerves causing him to throw up mom's spaghetti. He'd be a country singer today, singing about how Meemaw's burgoo don't stay down after a 5-week drunk, cause when your girlfriend runs off with your best friend, your truck, your shotgun, your fishing gear, and worst of all, your dog. The elephants have done a much better job of remembering, let alone courting, these people. People who ought naturally to be members of and voting for my party, not voting for the elephants. The right astounding part of all this is that my party knows, or ought to know, from experience, that we can get by perfectly well without the so-called progressive vote and the self-anointed and self-appointed squad and the Bernie bros. They can stay home on election day, but they can't go anywhere else politically. Oh, they can start their own party if they like. There's plenty of room on the left. Earl Browder and Gus Hall both being now enjoying all the sad variety of hell, but they can get the hell out of my party. It's horseshit that we have no enemies to the left. We have nothing but enemies there, including enemies within the party, for now. We have got to stop sneering at those on the land and in the heartland and thinking of them as so many dirt farmers, because that is where the common and center ground is. That we attend at all to a bunch of tenured morons indulging in their own form of colonialism by launching Anglophone attacks on word endings in those languages which have grammatical gender, such as this absurd Latinx, is suicidal and known to be so by anyone who's familiar with the truth behind the stereotype of the South Texas Hispanic household with, on the walls of the parlor, no art save the Virgin of Guadalupe and photos of JFK, JP2, and the sun in his marine dress blues. We don't need half-witted, half-literate Hollywood types, or oxymoronic activist journalists, or professors who spend more time pontificating than publishing. We don't need transgressive dance troops as the vanguard of the proletariat. We certainly don't need, and no party needs, a paramilitary arm, whether it be the Klan as of old or the organized riot machines of today. We don't need any sort or condition of intellectually dishonest grifter or troffer. We assuredly do not need the face of the party to be the raddled visage of Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. In fact, we need to disembarrass ourselves of these elements and toss them out of the party of Jefferson and Jackson and FDR, of Truman and Jack Kennedy and LBJ, and of Doug Wilder and Mr. Sam Rayburn. We need good old boys and good old gals who grew up with Yogi Berra on Saturday morning television and who know who Yogi Berra was. We don't need goji berry yogurt and goat yogurt types. A winning and permanent Democratic coalition must rely on camel smokers, tobacco chewers, lager drinkers, game day tailgate barbecue cooks, gospel singers, and good old boys who do wear makeup every autumn weekend when they paint the faces in the team colors for a smash-mouth state college football game, or hell, for the local Friday night high school game. We really don't need YouTube famous influences, Twitter blue checks, teachers union bosses, Chardonnay drinkers, brunch goers, domestic Corbynites and Jew haters, and all the other professional activists. They turn away more votes than they deliver, and they corrode the party's soul. For my party knows, or ought to know from experience, that we are right liable to get our asses handed to us and to deserve it for having strayed from the actual historic principles of the party, so long as we dismiss, disregard, lecture, hector, sneer at, and condescend to the college football, NASCAR, biscuits and gravy, church on Sunday, camp meeting, revival, homecoming, dinner on the grounds, FFA, roughnecking, post-hole digging, wire stringing, mortgage paying, potlucking, deer hunting, turkey shooting, bass fishing, diner breakfasting, bake sale, little league, vacation Bible school, flag waving, anthem respecting, veteran supporting, VFW, law and order, bowling league voters of all races. The hipster vote does nothing but run up the score in states we win anyway. Even where we unprincipled, prudence would dictate that we respect and reach out to the great mass of American voters. We are fools if we prefer 5 philosophy department adjunct lecturers in a faculty lounge arguing about patriarchy and the phallus over 50 voters at a fait d'oeil, dancing indifferently to Zydeco and the Balfour brothers alike, eating mudbugs, tasso, boudin, and ponce. We are right stupid to go chasing the votes of the Committee Against Columbus and Colonialism rather than those of half the county, and not just the Catholics, gathered to eat kielbasa and kolaches down at the Knights of Columbus Hall. There are more votes at a shad planking than at a pseudo-shaman's drum circle. We ought to be, both out of principle and out of prudence, assuming we're actually serious about winning elections. The party of bubbas at a barbecue talking baseball and bass boats, rather than the 2 or 3 people in an average congressional district burbling about Beltriard. The serious American political party concerns itself more with ranchers, riggers, and repairmen talking about rodeos over red beans and rice than with a coterie trading raclette recipes at a watch party for RuPaul's Drag Race. We are, or we were, and we are meant to be, not the party of finance and financiers, but the party of farmers talking feeder cattle futures, farrowing, fallow, fields, and the price of feed. The party not of millennial MBAs making moves to become medical marijuana millionaires, but of Schlitz-drinking, skull-dipping steel rollers, of dental technicians, not of deans for diversity, of hospital cleaners, not of HR consultants, of cornbread and catfish, curds and cabrito, not of caviar and clou de l'oratoire, of the working, not of the woke. Elections are won, and re-election is won at state fairs and fat stock shows and gun shows, by concerning ourselves with PTA meetings, by winning the sympathy of county extension agents, LPNs and LVNs, the AME Zion preacher, and the Effinger Volunteer Fire Department, by meeting as equals the American voter on his level and respecting her as the interviewer for the job as his employee which we're applying for, not by pretending to do so and then spending the next 4 years until the next election cycle doing nothing for the American voter save to use the money they give us to hobnob with and cater to bankers, film producers, vulture capitalists, Wall Street, multinationals, fashionable revolutionaries, hysterical teenage celebrities from abroad, the Kalorama nomenclatura, union bosses, miserably incompetent pop singers, and the tin-pot dictators of various hellholes which a small group of credentialed but uneducated loons have determined are somehow our historic victims and deserve our reparations, even as every penny of aid we send them sticks to the pockets of their local despots, terror chiefs, warlords, and other alumni of the former Patrice Lumumba University, whilst the people there continue to starve. And polls or no polls, I'm damned if I see us doing that. Worse yet, I'm damned if I see us learning anything from a loss and purging the party of people who have no right on God's green earth to label themselves Democrat. This party is engaged in ritual suicide at a time when what the country needs is to put the adults back in charge, and not the ones in second childhood. What we as a party deserve is 40 years in the wilderness until we get our shit straight. The country can't afford that. The elephants are running again, the Dayglow Hindenburg, and Mr. Canned Tuna with Miracle Whip on soggy store-brand white bread. That ought to redound to my party's advantage. And yet we are running an incoherent hack with spoon bread for brains and a spine of balsa, with, poised to take over within the year, Kamala Krupskaya, the chief vestal of the carceral state and People's Commissar for Internal Affairs and State Security. I presume this is because we think the election shall be conducted on social media, not among the voting population. I am not a redneck by affinity, consanguinity, or culture. I'd 1,000 times rather be a redneck than a boho, a bobo, or a hipster. And whether I should wish to be a redneck myself or not, there are a right smart of a hell of a lot of unabashed rednecks out there, and they vote when threatened. I am by no means so certain as I should like to be that they shall vote for my party and not for the elephants. We have given them no reason to do otherwise. We have given them every incentive to turn out en masse and vote against us. Bugger the black bloc bastards and bandits. We need to bring back the bubbas.